from each according to their ability, to each according to their need. Sounds wonderful on paper, but is redistribution really the way to create a just and prosperous society? In this episode, we discuss how free markets create wealth to meet needs and reward abilities at the same time. All this plus our PoC TOP-3 and news you can't use, coming up on Physics of Civics. I think the most persistent misconception is that free market capitalism is a zero-sum game, meaning there's only a certain amount of wealth in the world, and if someone's getting richer, it means others must be getting poorer. In other words, one person's gain is always someone else's loss. And as anyone who's ever been successful in business can probably tell you, this is pure nonsense.
Pure crap.
It doesn't work that way. There is not a finite amount of wealth in the universe. Quite the contrary. Wealth can absolutely be created. In fact, it happens all the time. What's more, free market capitalism is, I would say, virtually the only economic model of any kind that is not a zero-sum game and actually creates wealth. And it's been doing so for thousands of years, really since the dawn of civilization.
Right. The earliest folks who were trading
far
things.
back as you can go. Yeah.
Bartering. So what exactly, what do you mean when you talk about creating wealth? Explain that.
First of all, when we think about wealth, we naturally tend to think in terms of money, right?
Yep.
Rightly so. In a certain sense, money equals wealth. But I think we all kind of understand that in the truest sense of the word, wealth is not necessarily measured strictly in terms of debits and credits and dollars and cents. Rather, wealth is the overall measure of the extent to which one's wants and needs are being met. I mean, it's certainly possible to be very wealthy and yet have no money of your own. I mean, Lord knows the world is full of trust fund kids driving around in Maseratis on daddy's dime who technically don't really own much of anything themselves, and yet they're able to live in luxury. So, as important a measure as money is, let's not confuse wealth with net worth. They're really not the same thing.
Right, exactly. So how do free markets create wealth then?
Let me give you an illustration. A few years ago, I was watching a news show on TV, and on it was a segment by a columnist who I really like, named John Stossel. You may be familiar with John Stossel.
I love John, libertarian.
Yeah. Well, Stossel was describing that moment in a transaction that he called the thank you moment. It occurs when the transaction has been completed, the buyer is satisfied, the seller is satisfied, and they exchange expressions of their mutual gratitude. Hence, thank you, right? Well, it wasn't more than a day or two after that when I happened to be walking in downtown Washington, D.C.
Ooh, how'd that work out?
It worked out just fine.
Wearing your flak jacket. And
no, I was just walking around and I was getting hungry, so I decided to stop and get a hot dog from a street vendor. Something I'd done, many times.
A zillion times, right?
So I hand the guy my $3 or whatever it was, and he hands me a hot dog. I say thank you, and he says thank you. And it made
there you go, yeah.
It made me chuckle because there it was. The thank you moment, just as Stossel described. And I bring this up, Jay, because this is the moment, along with millions more like it that occur every single day, whether it's buying a $3 hot dog or signing a multi-million-dollar contract. These are the moments that truly define free market capitalism, because it is in these moments, and only in these moments, that wealth is created.
Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and comment. This episode of the Physics of Civics is brought to you by Savage Soaps, makers of all natural, handcrafted, sustainably sourced soaps, body butter, salt scrubs, and other skin-loving products for men and women. Get wet with Savage. Shop savagesoaps.com. You talk about John Stossel, who I love. He's great. He was probably one of the early victims of the left's cancel culture. You know that? Because he was on 2020 on ABC, and he at some point announced that he was a libertarian, and he started doing these stories free market stories, and ABC didn't like it.
He dared to step outside the lines. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think he's full of common sense.
Yeah.
And he just has a great way of explaining things, So that's why I like him.
Well, there's obviously more to the thank you thing, right? I mean, explain.
It's really all about voluntary exchange and the process by which one is able to satisfy one's own wants and needs while simultaneously satisfying the wants and needs of others and freely choosing to do so. That's the important part.
Mm-hmm.
I get what I want by giving you what you want.
Win-win, baby.
Right. And with each of us now having what we want, both of us are better off. Just like you say, the basic win-win. And when we think about it, I suppose thank you is just another way of saying win-win. Right?
Exactly.
For example, when I walked up to the hot dog stand, I had wants and needs to fill. I was hungry and, brother's got to eat. And I wanted a hot dog. So in that moment, my $3 was worth less to me than a hot dog. Simultaneously, that vendor also had wants and needs of his own. Presumably, he had bills to pay and needed to make his money. And he very much wanted to sell all of his hot dogs. I mean, that's why he was there, after all. So in that moment, his hot dog was worth less to him than my $3. So I'd rather have the hot dog. He'd rather have the cash. And so we swap. Each of us, by our own estimation, trading something of lesser value and gaining something of greater value. So with each of our wants and needs now satisfied, both of us are better off. Our combined value is increased and wealth is created. It's really as simple as that. Not only that, but oftentimes when transactions result in a thank you moment, more than just wealth is created. Sometimes relationships are created, a lot of times, that lead to more transactions, more needs being met, more wealth creation, and so on. You have a good experience, and the next time you're hungry for a hot dog and you're downtown DC, you go to that guy.
Your guy. Going to my guy.
But, business relationships are built that way.
Right.
Or the opposite could be true. A bad experience could lead to lost wealth and other unfavorable outcomes. But that's how the free market works. Free people, of their own volition and for their own benefit, agreeing to participate in a deal in which all participants stand to benefit. If they don't, if it's not mutually beneficial, they don't have to agree to the deal. They don't have to participate. And typically they won't. Why? Because they have a choice. And each time this kind of voluntary exchange happens and a win-win, thank you situation results, that's another spark, another firing of another cylinder in the great engine of prosperity that is free market capitalism. And no other economic model produces the same results. Now, is free market capitalism perfect? No. Are there problems with it? Yes. People do have bad experiences, and people use bad ethics to harm customers and consumers.
It happens.
It happens, and it happens all the time. But even so, nothing creates wealth like the free markets.
And the free market tends to weed those bad seeds out eventually, because customers hear from customers that have bad experience, especially today's market, because with the internet,
right?
And, people with Yelp, you go on there. I mean, when you go look up a restaurant in a town you're visiting or something, that's the first thing I look at, the ratings.
Right. And how many bad reviews do you need to see before you say, not buying?
Not going to happen. Well, what's sad, I think, is that today's youth, and I know we talk about this a lot because we're old guys, but I hear it all the time from the younger generation, how capitalism sucks. It doesn't work. It's the worst system, because they're being taught that. So, how would you comment to them, Phil? How would you explain why the free market is the free market capitalistic system? Why is it so much better? And why is it so successful? I mean, it works pretty much all the time until you get a dictator or someone come in who wants to take over. Look at Venezuela. It was probably the the best the best economy in South America until a dictator moved in and changed the system.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. The difference comes down to choice. All right. That's what puts the free in free markets. And this is not just a feature or a description of free market capitalism. It is the definition.
Right.
If an exchange is not mutually consensual and mutually beneficial, then it's not free market capitalism. It's something else.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever else it may be, without that, freedom of choice, it is a zero-sum game, and it will not create wealth.
So essentially, a zero-sum game just simply can't create wealth, right?
Well, no.
What's an example of a zero-sum game?
Well, let's see. Suppose I was able to get that hot dog for free.
Oh.
All right. Now, there's a couple of ways that could happen. Either the vendor, he might decide to give it to me on the house,
Right.
His choice. Or I could just stiff the guy. Not his choice,
Dine and dash.
Right. If he chooses, for whatever reason, to give me a hot dog and not charge me, probably he's got his own reasons for doing so and is reaping his own benefits, non-monetary though they may be.
Mm-hmm.
But even so, in this case, we're both better off and wealth is created. On the other hand, if I were to make off with the hot dog without paying for it, just flat out steal it, sure, I'd be better off. I'd be up one hot dog, but he would not be better off.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be out one hot dog.
It's not a win-win.
That was not right. That was not his choice. There was no agreement. It's just a jack. And so wealth hasn't been created. It's just been transferred from him to me. Redistributed, you might say.
Mm-hmm. Sound familiar?
So here's another example. Suppose I had no money and I asked the vendor to give me a hot dog for free and he said no. Suppose I then complain to a nearby cop and he takes my side and says to the vendor, hey, the guy's hungry. Why don't you just give him a hot dog? And the vendor says, well, I'm really sorry, but I operate on a very slim profit margin. I can't afford to give hot dogs away. Now suppose the cop says, let me put it to you this way, pal. Give the guy a hot dog or I shut you down.
Right.
Now, he's being strong-armed against his will. Now, the cop may feel he's doing something noble and charitable, but as far as the vendor's concerned, that's the same as if I'd stolen it.
Just getting hosed.
Right. His choice is taken away. He loses while I gain. And I seriously doubt I'd get a thank you from him. Now, we all know that government intervention is, and that's kind of what I'm illustrating here, intervention in the free market is a fact of life. And we see it all the time. Sometimes it's quite necessary. But as a practical matter, whether redistribution occurs through theft or deception or coercion or even through government edict, it will never create wealth. Why? Because free choice is removed from the equation. See, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Moreover, any economy that is built on redistributing wealth rather than creating it, almost by definition, it can never grow because you can never create wealth. Such an economy is going to be doomed to stagnation and ultimately to collapse. Why? It's like Margaret Thatcher once said, sooner or later, you run out of other people's money. And there are examples of this that are just too many to list. Put it this way. If anyone could come up with even a single example where this was not the case, please let us know. And good luck finding one.
Yeah, they don't exist.
And we really need to emphasize this point. That's not the goal of redistribution. The goal of redistribution is not to create wealth or spread prosperity. No matter how they may frame it for public consumptions.
Nope.
The whole point of redistributing wealth is so that those in charge, that is, those doing the redistributing, can control the wealth so that they can, A, help themselves to most of it, which they typically do, and B, use the rest as leverage to control the rest of us.
Yep.
Have we not seen this?
Over and over.
Yeah. Unfortunately, all the pious chatter we hear from leftists about living wages and social justice and the right to housing and the right to healthcare and all that, it's just a sales job. It's just a ruse to convince you to give them the power to take what you've earned. It's really just as simple as that.
It's fair to point out that the system we live under is not a pure free market capitalist system. Government involvement, it grows every year, and it has for many, many decades now.
And there's really no getting around it.
No, it's hard to avoid. And it brings to mind, Phil, an article I'd like to get your response on. This is current. You may remember that back in 2022, the Biden administration and Congress passed the Chips and Science Act.
Oh, yeah, I remember the CHIPS Act.
That was in an effort to bring chip manufacturing back to the United States, away from Asia, and boost domestic semiconductor output. As part of that legislation, the United States government gave $39 billion in subsidies to the chip manufacturers. That. A big chunk of it went to Intel. I think in some ways this points out the difference between the Biden administration and sort of the leftist thought and Trump's administration, because what Trump's done now is Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, he's proposing that we exchange that $39 billion for stock. So what he's saying is the United States government would then own $39 billion worth of Intel or whatever companies accepted these subsidies. Now, Trump's philosophy is, why should we just hand out this money? Why not give it in exchange for ownership, and whereby the United States citizens who are paying that $39 billion might actually make some money off of it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's exactly right. He's a businessman, and he's gotten to where he is, or he got to where he is in real estate because he knows how to make money. I mean, there are just people who know how to get rich.
And you know what? A lot of people hate him for that. The left, they really do. I mean, that's really the bottom line. Why they hate Trump is because he makes money. I don't know why that's such a bad thing.
Yet they don't hate George Soros.
Right. Or Hollywood.
Who makes a lot of money, probably more money.
Yeah.
When you think about it, there's just some people have a knack for cooking. Some people have a knack for nursing and bedside manner. And, some people have a knack for hospitality. And some people just know how to make money. And when they see an opportunity, they say, we're shelling out this dough. Why shouldn't the taxpayers, it's taxpayer money, why shouldn't the taxpayers be getting something from it?
Right.
He's done that with a number of different things. Does this kind of smack of, government ownership of the means of production? Well, maybe a little bit, but it's... But I think Intel is probably a multi-trillion-dollar market cap. So $39 billion is not going to get a huge percentage of the ownership.
Probably 10%, they were saying in the article. But yeah.
10%, or any return on that we get goes into paying down the debt.
Right.
And we are so deep in debt.
Oh my,
Jay,
people don't even
ridiculous.
Understand how far in debt this country is. But I think the philosophy here is a businessman's philosophy. It is, why should we just write you a check for $39 billion or whatever it is? We did it with the car companies in Detroit years ago. Right. I mean, why not say, we'll give you a loan? The government will loan you money.
Well, he took that same tack with the Ukraine minerals deal. Right. We're shelling out a bunch of money to Ukraine, and we want to help them. What did Europe do? They loaned them the money. Right. They're getting that money back with interest. We should be getting something back from it too. There's not a thing wrong with that, and it's just, it's smart.
So why is the left opposed to it?
Well, I think at this point, if Trump single-handedly found a cure for cancer, they'd be pro-cancer. It's just knee-jerk at this point.
Yeah.
We'll be discussing liberalism versus the far left in an upcoming episode. And remember to subscribe so you don't miss it. And other things like, your rights. What are your rights and what are they not? These are some upcoming episodes that bear on this very subject. So make sure you catch them.
And make sure you comment below on your thoughts. Good job, Phil. Now I have a better understanding of how to create wealth, so maybe I can make a few bucks now.
I'm glad you learned something, Jay, and thank you.
And thank you, my friend.
Okay, so now it's time for the PoC Top-3. And today, we're talking about our top 3 most exciting sports plays. Now, I don't mean specific plays in specific games. I'm talking about types of plays, like the slam dunk or the photo finish. What are the most exciting plays in sports?
All right.
So why don't you...
You want me to go first?
Why don't you go first?
Okay, I'll tell you what. My number 3 is that 7 seconds left on the clock in a professional NFL football game and kicking a 59-yard field goal.
The nail biter.
Yeah, I mean, that'll make you stand up, no matter who the team is, especially if it's your team.
Right.
Yeah, and my number 2 is definitely the half-court buzzer beater shot. And I'm not a huge pro basketball follower, but I love college. I love the March Madness stuff. And you see, it's just exciting watching the younger guys who most of them will never make it to the NBA. And when you see those kind of plays and the excitement, that's a big one for me.
Yeah.
But my number 1, Phil, and I'm not a golfer. I don't play golf. But my son has really gotten into golf, and I watch golf with him occasionally when we're together. And I saw, I think it was last year, or maybe in the year before, and a woman, and I don't know who she was because I don't follow golf. She hit a hole in one.
Wow.
And I mean, people came out of the stands. It was really, it was crazy. It was like, I guess.
Well, it's so rare.
It's so rare. And especially in a tournament like that, in a professional tournament. So that was, that's my top 3. I mean, what about you? What's your top 3?
My number 3 is the pick six.
Oh, yeah. You got to go with that for sure.
It's one of those turn the game around plays in football where it's just a complete reversal of fortune. It's usually accompanied by a run back and it's very exciting.
Yeah.
It's the game of football turning on a dime. So that's number 3. Number 2, I've always liked the shorthanded goal in hockey. In hockey, when you commit a penalty, they put you in the penalty box, and then your team is down 1 player. So it's instead of 5-on-5, it's 5-on-4, and they call that a power play. And typically, the best that the guys with 4 can hope for is to keep the guys with 5 from scoring. But every so often, the shorthanded team makes a break and gets a goal on a power play, and that's exciting to me.
Oh, it is, for sure. Absolutely.
Of course, except when it happens to the Capitals, and I don't like that at all. My number 1, and I'm a little torn on this, it's either the walk-off home run or the inside the park home run.
Ooh, yeah.
Now, the walk-off home run, usually... It always means that the home team wins.
Right.
And that's exciting. That means that they've either broken a tie or come from behind to win. And of course, home runs are always exciting. But then the inside the park home run is so rare. It doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't.
And the batter's got to be, first of all, speedy as hell.
Really fast, obviously.
And the ball has to take a really fortuitous bounce, and they got to be chasing around the outfield for a while.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's very exciting. But as it turns out, earlier this year, I think back in July, Patrick Bailey for the San Francisco Giants hit an inside the park walk-off home run.
I saw that. That was crazy. I wasn't watching it live, but I saw it on ESPN. That was nuts.
If you've seen the games at Candlestick Park, there's this huge brick wall out in right field. And if you can bounce it off that wall and it's still in fair territory, you don't know where that thing's going to go.
It's like pinball.
And it was a 3-run shot, so they were down by 2, and it was exciting.
Yeah,
that was
cool.
So,
I watched that a couple times on YouTube.
Right. So the walk-off inside the park home run, and any time they can beat Philadelphia is okay with me.
Well, send us your comments. If you've got a top 3 most exciting sports play, let us know if we missed one. How about some news you can't use, my friend Philip? I think we both have one, don't we? You go first.
This is a story from AP, Associated Press, out of Denver, Colorado.
I'm booing the AP.
Yeah. Have you heard of the Frankenbunnies?
The Franken bunnies? No.
Okay, this group of rabbits in Colorado with these really grotesque horn-like growths that seem to come out from every direction.
Oh my God.
It looks like a horror show. I mean, these things look nasty, man. It's like 20 horns sticking out from every side of this guy's face.
Is this a species, or is this like some
No. This is just a rabbit. You know?
I mean, is there something wrong with the rabbit?
Regular cottontail. There is something wrong with the cottontail.
I'd say so.
They're infected with what they say is a mostly harmless
Tell the rabbit that.
Papillomavirus.
Easy for you to say.
Which causes like warts to grow.
Oh, God.
And protrude from their faces. I mean, some of them are just gnarly. You know, they call them Franken bunnies, demon rabbits, zombie rabbits. I mean, it's really nothing new. Apparently, the folklore, there's scientific research back 100 years, but it just, for some reason, it made the news because we haven't seen this.
Are they exposed to some sort of environmental catastrophe or something? What's called?
Well, apparently they say the virus has likely influenced a centuries-old jackalope myth in North America, told of rabbits with antler horns.
Right, I've heard that.
But it's a virus, and there's a human version of the papillomavirus that causes cervical cancer. It's what women get pap smears for.
But it doesn't cause you to grow horns out of your face.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Although, you know, some of the women I've seen never mind.
Don't go there.
But
that's freaky, man.
That is freaky. And if you see this, apparently it doesn't affect them that much. It's just gross.
Well, I have some rabbits. I live in the woods, and I have rabbits in my backyard living under my deck, and I haven't seen one with horns yet. But
I have a couple of local boys coming around here eating my crops.
Yeah.
But
well, I've got a news you can't use too, Philip. And this this is out of CNN. Actually, it's CBC, which is an affiliate, I guess, in Canada. But the title of this story is "Blind Man Can Now See Through His Tooth."
What?
You heard that right, by Yasmin Janai. A Canadian man can see again after going blind more than 2 decades ago. He underwent surgery that uses a patient's own tooth to help restore their sight.
I'll be damned.
After going blind nearly 21 years ago, Brent Chapman can now see again through his tooth. Brent Chapman is one of 3 people who underwent tooth and eye surgery performed by Dr. Greg Maloney and his team at Vancouver for the first time in Canada. All 3 patients can now see to different degrees. Huh. It's a two-part surgery that was actually developed in the 60s.
So do they put an eye in his tooth, or do they put a tooth in his eye?
Tooth in his eye. It's a 2-part surgery. And what they do is they remove a patient's tooth and insert a plastic lens into the tooth. And then they stitch the whole thing into the patient's eye socket. You may wonder, Phil, why a tooth, right?
Right. Well, I was wondering that very thing.
Because teeth consist of the hardest substances in the human body, which makes it ideal for a casing to bridge between the lens and the part of the patient's body, and it ensures that it won't be rejected. It's called OOKP, which stands for something I can't pronounce with like 600 vowels.
Like ocular something, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Studies show a very good long-term retention of the implants, with some documenting rates of around 85 to 94% after 30 years. So their eyeball still works after 30 years. Man.
You just got to be careful who you wink at, because you might bite them.
It says here there are some potential complications. 1 is glaucoma. You can develop glaucoma. 2 is a mucous membrane issue. And 3 is an overwhelming desire to put food in your eye. No, I made that one up. So that's our news you can't use this week.
And I can't use a bit of it.
Not 1 inch.
Well, folks, that's our show. I hope you learned something that you can use. Don't forget to like, follow, share, hit that subscribe button so you catch all of these episodes. We'll be sure to check you out again if you'll do the same on the next episode of The Physics of Civics.